Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of The Lap Down. I am your host, Greg Farmer, and tonight we have Tyler, Ryan, JP is back with us tonight, and we have a new analyst with us tonight. Who this may be a one-off, it may be a permanent thing. Let's welcome in Billy. How are we doing tonight, fellas?
Good.
Tired.
Doing fantastic.
I get the...
Yeah, I was on my feet shopping.
Yeah.
So yeah.
As always, a big thank you to the Alkali Project for the intro and outro music on the podcast. Please be sure to check out their album on Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your music. Excuse me. I would like to start off by saying, once again, this fellas here at the Lap Down want to send our thoughts and prayers to the people in the state of Florida. Hurricane Milton made landfall. Obviously, we were recording on a Wednesday night at 10 p.m. It made landfall at about 8:30 p.m. As a Category 3. And we all know that, Florida's already been hit pretty hard, and they're getting slammed again. So let's just keep those people in our thoughts and prayers and hope that everybody makes it through safe. So starting off with some off-track news, it was announced yesterday that the Indycar series is going to be running a new street course race in Arlington, Texas next year. It will be a 2.73 mile street course around AT&T Stadium and Globe Life Field. Starting off with Tyler, how do we feel about new street course coming to the Indycar series?
I personally don't like it, actually. When you have a perfectly good speedway that actually put on the last great race, literally a few miles outside of Arlington, at Texas Motor Speedway, why do you need a road street course around AT&T Stadium when it could be Texas Motor Speedway? And everybody's been asking for more ovals. People want more ovals. They don't want more road courses. IndyCar.
I agree. What about you, Ryan? What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree for the most part with that about and I definitely think Texas Motor Speedway, if that was an option, should have been option number one. I don't know if, because of NASCAR's affiliation with Texas Motor Speedway, not sure if potentially NASCAR shut the door for Texas Motor Speedway to host the IndyCar series as well. But yeah, I certainly think that this is probably the next best option would be to run a street course in the area, and especially if you can partner up with both the NFL and MLB, because from what I've heard, this new street course is running around both the Dallas Cowboy Stadium and a MLB stadium, I think, too.
The Texas Rangers Stadium.
Yes.
Yeah, the Texas Rangers Stadium. So, yeah, the fact that you can partner up with both an MLB team to promote this race through the spring and a NFL team to promote through the winter off season, I think that's two very good partners strategically to pair up with to promote an IndyCar race. Now, all of that is heavily dependent on them actually promoting the race. Obviously, it sounds great in theory to say, oh yeah, we have these partners that can promote, but until they actually promote it, makes it kind of hard to understand.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the big wait and see game, but
True.
I think that, yeah, they are teetering on having too many street courses, and the average street course doesn't last very long compared to what an oval race could do. But again, I would hope that they already explored the Texas Motor Speedway, and it wasn't until Texas Motor Speedway was off the table that then they explored a street course option in the same area. Because obviously NTT...
Can I add on to that? It also is basically a parking lot race if you look at this layout.
Yeah, but I was also going to mention that it's also a home track for, it's the American home for NTT, the series sponsor as well, which being able to race in the series sponsor's home area, or at least the home area here in the States. I believe they're actually a Japanese-based company. So ideally a race in Japan would be their ideal home, but if you can get it close to their American base in Dallas, being able to race near there is valuable to them as a series sponsor, and you certainly want to keep them happy since they're providing money to the sport.
Yeah.
What about you, Billy? What are your thoughts on it? If you any thoughts?
I'm not as long, my thoughts on this is as long as it's not as bad as the first like Nashville street race, because that was awful. But my hopes and thoughts are basically I hope this works out for both IndyCars and for the Texas Rangers and the Devil.
Yep.
Yeah, that's about it.
All right. What about you, JP?
Well, given that I have some family down there, I have the YouTube channel. I might just go down there and get some thoughts. So I think, yes, all of you have said IndyCar's got too many street courses, but this could be a 1-year thing. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. So it looks like we had a late edition by about 3 minutes. Jamie is with us tonight. Jamie, we are discussing the newly announced IndyCar street course race in Arlington, Texas. Would love to get your thoughts on it.
I mean, I was not prepared for that question, so you can kind of keep me as silent because I didn't even know about it.
Okay. All right. So before we go to the next topic, I have one question. Let's say that this street course race for IndyCar is a success. Do we possibly see the possibility of NASCAR running it too in the next couple of years?
Maybe.
Well,
I don't think so. I think if NASCAR was going to double up or run a IndyCar street course, I think Long Beach would be the first option there.
All right.
I mean, I would heavily disagree with you, Ryan.
All right.
And let me tell you why. NASCAR owns the Texas Motor Speedway, so it could be a cool way for NASCAR to say, you know what, let's do 2 weekends in Texas and have it be where...
But NASCAR doesn't own Texas Motor Speedway. That one's owned by SMI.
Yeah, it's owned by SMI.
Then never mind.
SMI is owned by NASCAR.
Yeah.
No, that's ISC that's owned by NASCAR. And that's the other half of the tracks, the ones that don't end in Motor Speedway. Texas Motor Speedway, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Dover Motor Speedway, all those ones are all owned by SMI. ISC is the one that NASCAR bought, which had Daytona and a bunch of others.
Okay. Then never mind. My idea might not happen then.
Yeah, and again, it's just kind of the fact that NASCAR already has 2 races in Texas. Now, maybe if they were willing to leave COTA to go and run Dallas, but again, I think if they were looking to add another street course, I would try and get NASCAR back into the South California market because they are completely out of there on their 2025 schedule. Now, obviously, this Auto Club short track may at some point happen. But as of right now, it hasn't. And getting NASCAR into that South California market, I think, is an important place to be in.
Absolutely. I mean, they already took the Clash away, so.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they have absolutely zero presence in the entire southern half of the state of California.
Yep.
Going forward. Obviously, they have Sonoma in Northern California, but that's not Southern California.
All right, so we are going to go to our next topic. As we talked about last week, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports filed a lawsuit against NASCAR, and there has been some updates as of today. There is a hearing scheduled for next Wednesday, October the 16th, for the preliminary injunction for 2311 and FRM to still compete in NASCAR under some sort of charter agreement. And there were some hearing requests filed either yesterday or today that NASCAR must respond to by Monday. Don't have any details on that. However, our good friend Bob Pockris posted a couple of letters that were sent back and forth between 2311 and NASCAR from, let's see, what was it? September the 16th. Now, I'm not going to read all of this. It is very, very long. But in NASCAR's response to what 2311 was requesting from them, in the new charter agreement, it came to light that there was a non-compete clause that stated if you did not sign the charter agreement, you were not allowed to race in NASCAR in 2025 and beyond. NASCAR responded to that and said that they took that clause out as part of the negotiations. And it says here, quote, if you choose not to execute your charter agreements by the end of the year or by the scheduled date, which is when they presented that 105-page booklet to the teams, if you do not respond, then you will be more than welcome to race in the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season as open teams.
I'll be right back.
All right. So that answers my question
Hey,
from
we're
last
doing
week.
a podcast right now. I'll call you back.
JP, you need to mute yourself.
You gotta
please
mute.
I'm back.
All right.
Okay.
Anyways, that answers my question from last week about what would happen if they didn't sign and that injunction didn't happen. They would still be allowed to race as open teams. But as I stated just a minute ago, the preliminary injunction will be filed, or the hearing is scheduled for next Wednesday. So, Ryan, what do we think might come from that hearing next week?
I mean, again, the more and more I read about it, the only leg of the lawsuit that I kind of see room for the teams to stand on it would be the intellectual property parts, and that's mainly because I don't know a lot about about what NASCAR gets as a part of just them competing for intellectual property. Yeah, if that extends to like the ability to go and have their own separate diecast company, potentially be the exclusive diecast company of say 2311 Racing or something like that, to be able to market and potentially make money off their paint schemes that are running. If that's part of it, I can see that leg being more valid. And again, after kind of reading through some stuff, but yeah, in terms of the money, they're already slated based on the new agreement that they're going to make over double the percentage that they made under the old media rights deal, because the old media rights deal gave them 20% or 25% of the TV money, and this new deal has that over doubled. So at least 50% of the TV money is going now to the teams, as opposed to the old deal, which had 60% of the TV revenue going to the tracks,
JP,
which I thought was a mistake in the first place.
JP, you need to mute yourself, please.
Please. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the biggest thing for me that has still been just kind of a little off about the whole way that the when it comes to the things that they've argued about. Again, how much more money do they really want if they're already getting over half the TV money?
Right. Jamie, what are your thoughts on it?
Kind of like what Brian said. There's a lot of questions out there. There's a lot of uncertainty, and especially on our end, there's a lot of unknowns. It's just one of those things where we're going to be kind of going along for the ride and just seeing how it plays out, and really finding out like what ground do these teams have to stand on based off of what they're looking to get.
Yeah,
Right.
and until things start becoming public, we can't really go off of it because we haven't been sitting in these meetings. We haven't read through the 100-page document that they were told to sign.
Nor do we even have access to that
Exactly.
as fans.
If I wanted to, I can't go and find that 100-page document and read through every line of it, even if I had the time.
Yeah. After we get done recording, I will post the letters that were sent back and forth in our group chat so everybody can read them. Like I said, they are very long, and it would take
I've seen the letters.
It'd probably take me 30 minutes to read them here on air.
It would probably take me 2 hours to just read them fully.
Yeah, I've read through the letters this afternoon. And yeah, they are lengthy.
Yeah.
I have no thoughts on this at all because I haven't been paying attention to the lawsuits between 23 and Front Row Motorsports. So.
Well, and it's not. As I say, the lawsuits actually between Front Row Motorsports and 2311 are both on the same side of the lawsuit against NASCAR.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay, yeah. The way you said it, it sounded like you were talking about it being a lawsuit between the two.
I just kind of.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I clarified it in case you didn't know.
It's fine, Brian. It's fine.
JP, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think. Hold on. I really don't have too much to say, but I would say that the thing about it is it kind of sucks that NASCAR is in this situation, but I mean they did it to themselves, so we'll see what comes out of it.
I'm curious to know how you think NASCAR necessarily did this to themselves. I mean, they've been working on these negotiations for a couple of years, and I mean, at some point, I think at least some of the responsibility on getting a deal done has to lay on the teams, especially if they're asking for unreasonable amounts of either money or control.
You are right on that point, Ryan, but NASCAR doesn't do a good job of listening to the teams when it comes to this matter.
What proof do you have that NASCAR doesn't listen to the teams? If I'm assuming you haven't been in any of the team meetings where they are discussing the contract negotiations, similar to me. All you know is that Denny Hamlin's been unhappy, but again, you don't know that what was actually offered to them, or what they're asking for. Because again, they could easily be asking for something completely unreasonable, and that's why they're unhappy, is that they haven't gotten it.
Yeah.
Oh, can I go next?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Oh, Brian, I get what you mean by citing NASCAR. But to be fair, if you've read the interviews with Rick Hendrick and what I think was Richard Childress, if I'm not correct, you should correct me if I'm
yeah,
wrong, Greg.
yeah. I've seen the
Yeah,
Richard
I believe
Childress
you're correct.
interview,
But
and
my
I'm
thing
not
is,
saying that NASCAR is completely innocent, but I'm just saying to put the entire blame and say that, oh yeah, NASCAR easily could have completely prevented this.
yeah, NASCAR
I
could
mean,
have. Oh yeah,
the only way
NASCAR.
NASCAR could have
A lot of it is NASCAR's fault if you think about it.
the only way NASCAR could have completely prevented this would be to hand the complete control over to the teams and cave into every little thing they ask for. And at that point, you essentially cease to exist as a sport if you give all the
Right.
control over to the teams.
But how I view it is the fact that I get the teams want the control, and I actually 100% agree with the teams. Honestly, I think the teams can need a little bit more control. I understand there needs to be a balance. I get it.
And again, it's a question of how much control are they asking for? Because again, we don't know how much
To be
control they
fair,
had.
according to the reports, I heard that the agreements were the teams were expected to get bigger slice of the pie. That's what I heard.
Bigger slice of the TV revenue pie. That's what I was talking about earlier when I said that they're going from their previous deal where they got 25% of the money from the TV deal to now they're getting over 50% of the TV money.
But
Yeah,
but I'm gonna say I'm on the team side. I personally think that NASCAR's I think the ways of rules of government how NASCAR is needs to change drastically. And I actually kind of agree with the lawsuit a little bit, the IP part.
well,
Not necessarily
again,
about the money, but I agree.
My question is though, on what basis do you place that on? Because again, we don't know what the current balance of power really is, because again, we aren't in those interviews. We don't know who actually how much input the teams give and how much of it NASCAR listens to. I mean, we listen to disgruntled team owners a lot, but disgruntled team owners are always going to make it sound worse than it is.
So something I was thinking about.
David Jim Francis trying to think. It's Elton Sawyer.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Something I was thinking about. I don't know if you guys remember, back in 2014, NASCAR had kind of like their version of how the NFL has the NFL Players Association and things like that.
Yep.
Back in 2014, NASCAR implemented the Race Team Alliance.
Yep.
So my question in all of this is, with how sticky and how just, I guess you would say a big cloud of gray area question marks, where are they in all of this? Is 2311 having the backing of the Race Team Alliance, which is pushing them to do it, or is this something that not even the Race Team Alliance is even involved with?
Well, yeah, I haven't heard much about the Race Team Alliance in a while, but I would imagine the Race Team Alliance, if the Race Team Alliance was pushing for them to do that, there'd be more than two teams involved. Because at this point, the lawsuit is only between two teams and a total of 6 of the 36 charters.
Right. And this is kind of like my defense on your side, Ryan. If the blame was solely on NASCAR, you would have the Race Team Alliance come out publicly and say they have the full backing of 2311 and X, Y, Z of reasons of what's going on. But in this scenario, you don't really hear about that much at all. It's more just 2311 and NASCAR going head to head, which means that there must be some request that 2311 is trying to get NASCAR to do that they just simply don't want to do because it could have future implications on what other teams could try to do to stronghold NASCAR into doing more than what they feel is best for business.
Yeah, and similarly, I've said something over the course of this lawsuit is that I feel like they would have a much stronger leg to stand on if if any of the big teams were involved. If Hendrick, if Gibbs, if Penske were involved in these lawsuits, if one of the long-standing teams that has, again, a history of being involved in NASCAR, because I think one of the NASCAR or Elton Sawyer might have said something along these lines of the two teams that are involved in this lawsuit are 2311, who is relatively new to the NASCAR team ownership group and hasn't been around for a long time, and Front Row, who has only very recently become competitive.
Yeah.
And
I feel like
the
with that,
2311, it seems like they came in and were instantly upset with everything that they were joining into.
right. But that's all I wanted to add to it, was just wanted to bring up like the Race Team Alliance and how it's funny to me that they're not publicly talking about this.
Yeah. And again, I don't even know if they still exist because I haven't heard anything from them. Pretty much, I don't even think I've heard of them since post COVID.
I know Denny Hamlin's mentioned it a couple times on his podcast, but yeah, like you said, there really hasn't been much in the waters from them here lately.
Yeah.
For the big team backing them.
Yeah, because 2311 is part of that group as well as Front Row. Because like I went on their website just to see the teams that are a member of part of the Race Team Alliance, and the very first two that you see is 2311 and Front Row. Then it's Hendrick, Joe Gibbs, JTG Colleague, Legacy, RCR, RFK, Spire, all them after that. But it's just funny that those are the very first two that you see on the website.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll hear more in the coming weeks and stuff, and we'll have plenty to talk about this. But so we're gonna move on. They were in Talladega this past weekend, and one of my favorite tracks. Were four wide and handsome. Once again, with these cars, you had to save fuel in the stages, which led to some quote unquote epic four wide racing for about 7 to 10 laps, where basically the entire field was four wide. I think it was either near the end of stage 1 or stage 2. I can't remember.
I think it was in stage 1.
Okay.
Stage 1.
Gotcha. But the real excitement came later on in the race. The field was trying to lap Todd Gilliland, and Brad Keselowski got a big old push from his good old friend Joey Logano and Chase Briscoe, and got into the back of Austin Cindric and triggered a 28-car crash, which is the largest crash in modern Cup Series history.
Which is ironic because that was the trivia question from last week.
I was going to bring that up. Someone said we spoke it into existence.
Yep.
You know, that the ironic thing is because I had also brought up the flip data just before the Daytona race where we had 2 more airborne crashes.
Yep. But, nope, 28 cars took out a bunch of playoff drivers. And they had an overtime finish, which saw Ricky Stenhouse Jr. get his 4th career win over Brad Keselowski. It is the 3rd closest finish just this season at 6/1000ths of a second. Now,
3rd closest Cup Series finish, 4th photo finish of, if you include the Xfinity Series one.
Okay, well, thank you for that. But I have a series of questions from this race, and we will go through them. First one, Tyler Mon, who is Kyle Larson's spotter, was it was posted all over social media. He told Larson to back off of Keselowski coming to the finish. Based on what we saw from Daytona, where Parker Retzlaff pushed Harrison Burton past a Chevy teammate, was this in response to that to avoid Larson getting this into some sort of controversy about pushing a Ford to a win over a Chevy? And we will start with Jamie.
Without a doubt. I'll just keep it at that since we got a series of questions. But yes, without a doubt, it is a response to that to put more emphasis on manufacturer loyalty than it is to overall racing.
All right, Ryan?
I would say that yes, it definitely had something to do with that finish at Daytona. Although I would say earlier on in the fact that they waited to mention it until there was really no chance that pushing Keselowski was going to lead to a Kyle Larson being able to have an opportunity at a win. Like nothing Kyle Larson was going to do pushing on Keselowski's bumper was going to change Larson's fate. At that point, I don't see a real problem with the team telling him to back off at that point. Now, if he was being told on the restart or as they were going down the back straightaway when there was still plenty of time to maybe push Keselowski to lead and then pass Keselowski yourself, then I would have had a little bit more of an issue.
All right. What about you, JP?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Ryan. I would have had more of an issue if the team would have been like, back off of him, don't push him on the start. But other than that, since we have a series of questions, I'll just keep it at that.
All right. What about you, Tyler?
Oh, it's 100% team orders from February. I'm with Jamie 100%. I'm going to keep it at that.
All right. Billy?
I'm more or less on Jamie's side, more or less like manufacturer loyalty than just pure racing.
Well, I don't think there was any question that it was manufacturer loyalty.
Here's the thing, I'm not a fan of Kyle Larson at all.
Alright.
You and me both, bitch, man.
Oh, finally, somebody that actually agrees with me.
Certainly not a Kyle Larson fan, but don't have any real reason why I dislike the guy. Honestly, I think I say that about a lot of drivers. Like, I think Logano and to a degree Keselowski are really the only two drivers I have any strong dislike feelings towards.
Yeah, understandable. I'm like, the reason I hate Larson is just because he just wins too much.
Yeah, similar to my feelings towards Jeff Gordon in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, it's like Jeff Gordon syndrome.
Yep.
Sounds like me with Jimmy Johnson.
Hate him because you hate him.
Oh, God. Oh,
the biggest thing is just, I don't know why he won so much in 2021 and just all of a sudden lost all that speed.
You just, Greg, you just gave me
New car.
Back to Jimmy Johnson, just constantly dominating the late to early 2010s. Well, late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yep. All right, so I have two questions left, but they could fall under the same category. And that category is the officiating in this race.
Oh yeah, that's what we're about to get to. Yay!
Oh yeah. So
one
at a time. I want to hear your rants. I want to hear your vents, please. So after the controversy with Josh Berry last week, where he spun, had 4 flat tires, and they told him he was out of the race, they just decided to reverse their decision and started towing cars back to pit road that were just completely demolished and said, go ahead and work on them when the yellow comes back out. You know, if I'm not mistaken, the rule states that if you are in a crash with damage, with contact, you have to be told you are out of the race. I don't get it. It was a very, very big head scratcher. Now, my next, so that's one question, but my next question kind of flows into that too. They put the red flag out for the wreck because there was 28 cars in it, and probably about 15 of them were sitting down in the turn 3 grass.
Yeah.
They put the yellow flag back out, but the pace car and the field that was left never moved. But the teams that were involved in the wreck, where cars were already on pit road, were allowed to start working on their cars and stay on the lead lap back in the race. How?
Yeah.
I mean, Alex Bowman was one of them. Chase Elliott was one of them. I'm a Bowman fan and all that, but I don't agree with this call. Like, how is that fair to the drivers that are still in the race that were not involved or didn't have that much damage? Why do those teams get a head start?
Yeah.
Start with Billy.
Well, I'm just gonna say this: drink responsibly, people. Well, but this is what NASCAR officiating is doing.
Not drinking responsibly.
Yeah. With salty watermelon.
All right. What about you, Jamie?
It boggled my mind watching it. It was like all race long they just kept like fumbling calls, and there was never a sense of consistency. And a buddy of mine even asked, he was like, "Man, it sure seems like NASCAR is trying to pull an NFL with the refs and mess with people's bets." And I'm like, normally I'd say you're completely wrong, but I can't explain like the back and forthness of this race, and it really made me question, like, did NASCAR like do like an agenda type thing where it's like, hey, we need to control the overall outcome and make it XYZ.
Here's my counterpoint.
One at a time, guys. One at a time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Billy. You started first.
Well, if NASCAR did pull like an NFL style with like the referees, they would easily let like a Hendrick Motorsport driver win that race instead of Ricky Stenhouse. Modern NFL.
But it's also nearly impossible to control who's going to end up out ahead at the end of a pack race like that.
Yeah, true. But after questions, I want to give like an interesting fact about this race. Anyone else?
Yeah, so I mean, going back to the thing that Jamie said, he was talking about throughout the race, there were a lot of questionable calls until the big one with like 12 to go. I don't remember there being any decisions NASCAR even had to make, really. Now, obviously, we have the caution with 12 to go where there were a lot of questions as to, okay. But I also think, at least in terms of in the context of this one race, they officiated it. It's not like they left. What?
I think he said that caution came with 5 to go.
No, the big one was 5 to go.
Okay, it was 5 to go. I just remember all the cars that were out in that wreck were considered 12 laps down at the end of the race. After overtime and all that. But regardless, with the big one, it ended up, that was the only time I really remember NASCAR officiating going out there, and I don't think they ended up towing any of the drivers straight to the garage, which, at least in terms of this one race, they officiated all the cars correct or in the same way, but obviously it was inconsistent with a week ago at Kansas, where they didn't allow Josh Berry. And honestly, I think this is where they opened up themselves to this rule because of the beaching incident at Auto Club 2 years ago, when there were a bunch of drivers ending up beached at Auto Club after spinning and having their tires go flat, and the new next gen body would just get stuck on the flat because of all four tires being flat. And ultimately that was what started the whole opening up the rule set of allowing a team to get towed back to pit road but still being allowed to continue. I preferred the rules when it was black and white of if the tow truck touches your car, you're done. But if with the new cars, if you do end up with the situation where they get beached, I'd almost like to see them be like, okay, we'll tow you back to pit road. You can put four tires on, but then you have to be able to complete one pace lap before you're actually allowed to work on the car itself to fix damage. Because at that point, then you still have a prove it test of, okay, yeah, the car can function, could have theoretically functioned if it had four decent tires to get back to pit road.
I mean, like I said, we saw some of those cars, like Chase Elliott was just completely annihilated.
Yeah,
and
so again,
like
the theoretical rule that I said I'd like to see would be like, for example, tow that Chase Elliott car back to pit road, allow them to put four tires on, but that's it. And then he has to complete one more out and in lap to essentially be eligible to start repairing that car.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tyler.
Oh, where do I even begin? Oh, so the officiating sucks when it comes to the damaged vehicle policy. The whole damaged vehicle policy sucks in general. I hate the fact that they have time. I want them to go back to where, you can go off the track and get repaired and make minimum speed to get a decent finishing position despite you being lapped out.
Yeah, but I will say one thing I like about the damaged vehicle policy is that you don't have teams adding a ton of body panels to the car that are just going to go get torn back up again and leave sheet metal all over the track.
That's easy enough to replace with bare metal. Literally, that's it. Do what they did in the old days. Take off the sheet metal. But my problem is the fact that it was so blatantly inconsistent. They overcompensated for fucking Josh Berry last weekend that they had to tow everybody back to let them fix them. That's actually a lot of the reason why they did what they did was because they were overcompensated.
All right.
Also, I personally think with this rule, Ryan Bailey got fucked at Lockman Flag. He's been fucked twice by this rule this year.
All right.
This rule is absolutely shit. It needs to be changed. NASCAR needs to make this rule change.
I don't even remember what happened at Watkins Glen, let alone what happened to Blaney.
Blaney was in the lap one crash going through the bus stop, and they said something about his steering was broke, and it was something that could have been fixed on pit road, but instead they towed him to the garage and said he was done.
Yeah, and again, that was one of those things where theoretically, if you're on the damaged vehicle policy, if the tow truck touches your car, again, the old rule was that you got towed right to pit road or right to the garage.
Anything like tire sound, you can get towed back to the road. If you cannot physically move your car and your car has too much damage, like leaking fluid, you need to stop that vehicle and it has to be towed and you are done. That's how I view it.
I mean, again, I felt like it was so much more simple when you could just say, it was simple. If the tow truck touches your car, you're done.
Oh.
That's still a bullshit rule if you think about it, because what if, somebody just has a flat tire and they have to get towed back because they're beached? That's dumb.
There's a lot of gray area.
I really don't remember there being a beaching issue until the next gen car came out, which
exactly.
I don't know what changes they made to the next gen car itself to try and avoid beaching.
The next gen car uses ground effect arrow, which car has to be really low to the ground in order for the effect to take part. So if the wheels go down, what's it called? The diffuser in the bottom of the car gets splashed on the ground. And that's why they get stuck.
Yeah.
So therefore, they need to compensate the rules for the new car, which honestly is not hard.
But again, do you really want NASCAR to be making the judgment call of that's too much damage, that's not enough damage, and towing people
No.
either to the garage or to pit road selectively? Because that also seems like it could open up a world of issues.
If I do it, if you can't move and you have a flat tire, let them tell you back, please get a tire. If you can't move your car because your car won't start or that you have too much damage, you are to be towed back.
Well, and what if you can't tell if it's because of the flat tires or because of the crash damage? Because typically in crashes where you get crash damage, usually your tires end up going down as well. And that's why I proposed the solution of allow them to tow them back to pit road, do the 4-tire change only, and then they have to complete one more pace lap to be able to prove that they can still run, and then they are able to start fixing the damage.
I think they should. I personally think they should go back to the get the car fixed enough to the point where you can go to full minimum speed and call it good. That's how I view it.
Because again, like I remember the 2016 Daytona 500 where Elliott got torn up early, and they were able to put on full new body pieces. He came out several laps down, and then he was involved in another wreck later and put more sheet metal all over the track.
Let's get JP's thoughts on this. He's been pretty quiet over here.
So, thank you. My thoughts, happen to be this. Why doesn't NASCAR, I watch the drivers meeting on YouTube every weekend, and this weekend I watched it expecting to hear something about this issue in the garbage meeting. It needs to be black and white every single week. They need to fix it before the end of the season, because it's going to piss some people off if it costs them a championship.
There's already a lot of pissed off people about this, but I'm going to ask my last question here. Should Ricky Stenhouse Jr. have gotten penalized? Now hear me out. When the big one happened, Austin Cindric bounced off his left side door and tore a hole in the side of his car. Half of his door foam was missing. Now, the rule states under safety that the cars must have all door foam in the cars at all times. Stenhouse should have been technically black flagged and brought down pit road to fix that door foam. But instead, Elton Sawyer said after post-race that it was just something that went unnoticed. How do you not notice that? Starting with Jamie.
Yeah, that would be my question, is how do you not notice it?
Starting with Jamie.
I would almost say that it kind of falls on NASCAR at that point.
That was going to be more of my reasoning. Like, it's not Martin Truex's team to be at fault for NASCAR not noticing.
You mean Stenhouse's?
Stenhouse, yeah.
Yeah, the other junior.
Yeah.
The other Jim Bug. Go ahead.
It's definitely one of those things that NASCAR is more at fault for not noticing. Because, I mean, if I'm a race team and I realize that there's an issue and that I shouldn't be on the track, but NASCAR hasn't said anything, then guess what I'm not going to be doing?
I'm not coming down pit road.
No, I'm not calling myself out either.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, because you might suspect that it's not up to code, but you don't know until NASCAR tells you. You might suspect it, but you don't know for sure.
Yep.
And again, they aren't going to call themselves out.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you have any additional thoughts?
Yeah, again, my biggest question is how did you not notice? But also, when it comes to mandatory stuff like that, and in particular, I think of this similar to I think of this like, okay, is there any way that he could have come down and got just the door phone replaced and maybe been allowed to keep his position in some way? But again, I don't know what the ruling would have been on that, and that would have certainly been a on-the-fly decision if they even tried to make it. But ultimately, I think the correct move would have been for NASCAR to have noticed it, first off, and then made a correct decision. And again, it's hard to know what the correct decision they would have made would have been if they had noticed it.
Right.
But obviously, as a Stenhouse Jr. fan, I'm very happy that he got the win, and very much happy that luckily we didn't have a reason to question it because there wasn't another crash that challenged the fact that the door phone wasn't there.
Yep.
Because
And
obviously the hypothetical of another wreck would have made that a lot scarier.
yep. And before we move to before we go to JP on this, I will throw this out there too. They didn't notice it on track when there's cameras on his car at all times. What about post-race inspection? You got to tear the car down after he wins.
Well, that's probably where you noticed that the door phone wasn't in there, but my guess is it wasn't a technical disqualification to the same extent of like Sam Mayer's car, which that is another issue that is still ongoing because they failed their appeal, and I believe they will be taking it to the final appeals officer. So
I heard they had the final appeal.
no, they had their first appeal. They can still send it to the final appeals officer.
Yeah.
Bob Parker said that this was an expedited appeal and there will be no second one.
Okay, there will be no second one. Okay. I just knew that they'd only appealed it once, and typically there is that second appeal. But I also know that Dale Jr. also posted an explanation explaining why he feels like they should have won their appeal.
Yeah.
Which I thought was evidence to go along with the second appeal.
Yeah, this was posted 8 hours ago. It says appeals panel rules in favor of NASCAR in the Sam Mayer DQ from Talladega. He remains DQ'd and there is no further appeal.
All right.
But JP, what are your thoughts on the Stenhouse situation?
So, you know, it's kind of a sticky situation because that door phone comes out anymore and we've seen fires. And
well, we've seen the door phone itself catch fire before, so
yeah. That's my point. Is I kind of agree with you. Why didn't NASCAR see this as a safety thing?
Especially when there are TV cameras all over the entire thing, and he was the leader of the race.
Exactly. He was the leader of the race by the time they got the big one all figured out and stuff. So why not bring him down pit road and have him fix it?
Yep.
You do it to everybody else.
Yep.
Well, but again, we haven't seen them actually black flag someone for something like that in a while.
Yeah, but I'm sure if it was Larson, they would do the same thing. I mean, not.
Larson, they would have ignored it as well. Probably more so because it was Larson.
If it was Larson, they would ignore it.
Or Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
Oh,
Elliott certainly would have gotten the benefit of the doubt there.
If it was Chase Elliott, I would be screaming outside of my house like, "Hey! Hey!"
Before we get to Tyler, there's an update on a topic that we talked about a few minutes ago. regarding the 2311 lawsuit as of 40 seconds ago. NASCAR, this is from Bob Pockrass, NASCAR has asked deadlines for response in regards to the hearing next week to be extended, as the Daytona offices could be closed all next week because of the hurricane. NASCAR also notes that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports did not ask for earlier deadlines than the 2 weeks the court normally gives, and they're proposing a November 4th hearing. So, we'll see what the courts have to say about that. But back on topic,
Give me
Tyler,
1 second.
Tyler, what are your thoughts?
A November 4th hearing would put it the Monday after the Martinsville Cut race for the Cup Series.
To be very
Seems like
honest,
a very
I
odd
personally
point to be putting it.
very honest, I haven't really been penalizing people for that, so I don't really have an opinion.
Well, here's the thing.
All right.
Here's the thing. The damage from the hurricane might play a factor into that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I understand why they're asking for a delay. I just don't understand why they don't have it scheduled for, like, the week after the championship ends. That way the full NASCAR season is over before they start the court date. That would be my opinion. Is that I would try and schedule it for the week of the 11th, the week after Phoenix.
Well, Veterans Day, so...
Okay, so schedule it for the week of the 19th or whatever, but the week after Phoenix, or a week or two after Phoenix.
Yeah.
But my point being, schedule it for the off season, not right before your champion, but right before Denny Hamlin has to potentially prepare for a championship race, or Tyler Reddick,
or Denny Hamlin losing in the championship once again.
Well, but my point is that those are two championship caliber drivers who could potentially, one or both could be in the championship four, and they'd be going to court the Monday before the Phoenix finale.
Yeah.
Billy, what are your thoughts on the Stenhouse situation?
My thoughts on the Stenhouse situation: if Denny Hamlin got away with going below the yellow line in 2020, and just allow Stenhouse to have this win, like, that's my opinion.
Well, those are two fairly different situations, but
I know it's two fairly different situations, but NASCAR doesn't know when to enforce their rules.
That's what I was fixing to say. Is he's playing on NASCAR's officiating skills?
Yeah, yeah. You could definitely say that's a skill issue and a half.
All right. Well, we are going to move to our next segment. This is green flags and black flags. And for our new listeners and for Billy, who is here for the first time, green flags is something or some things that you liked during the race weekend, and black flags is something that you did not. And we will kick it off with Jamie.
All right, green flag, it goes out to NASCAR, or not NASCAR, Kyle Larson, for getting his best finish at Talladega, and since I can remember him driving a restrictor plate at Talladega. 4th place.
He had a third place finish like a year or two ago at Talladega.
I must have missed that one, but that was the first time that I've seen him finish relatively well at a restrictor plate in a long time. So, green flag to Kyle Larson for getting that finish and overcoming the blunder that was at the very beginning of this elimination series.
Yeah, he definitely proved me wrong about saying that Larson would be out in this round.
Black flag, I'm going to go ahead and state the obvious, the officiating at the end.
All right. What about you, Ryan?
All right, so my green flag for the weekend, I'm going to go ahead and say, since it's been a while since I've been able to say this, it's a Ricky Stenhouse Jr. victory, and at least I won't see all three of my drivers go winless this season between McDowell, Stenhouse, and Kyle Busch. Usually it's been Kyle Busch that I've been able to fall back on and say, well, at least he's got to win. Now we look to the Roval.
It could be
But at
worse.
least
You could be a Harrison Burton fan like me.
that is
Hey,
definitely worse, but you at least have a win this year, unlike Kyle.
Yay.
I got to see Harrison Burton win in person a few weeks ago, and I'm not the biggest Harrison Burton fan, but that was pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah. So there was, but yeah. So that's my green flag, and for the black flag, I'm gonna try and think of something other than the officiating because I think that's gonna be the black flag for a lot of people. No, I'm going to say the black flag is going to be to Sam Mayer and his team for having that car too low in the Xfinity race.
All right. What about you, JP?
All right. So my green flag is going to be a little bit different. It goes to the 47 pit crew on how fast they got out to Ricky Stenhouse when he won that race. They were pretty jacked up. I like to see that out of someone that doesn't win very often. So that's my green flag. My black flag is going to be a little bit different too. It's Orton Sawyer. Because I mean, with this whole cabal that we had over the weekend with the Kanye car wreck, why didn't he come out and say, no, this is what we're going to do, and basically say, okay, this is what we're going to do with your car, you're done, you're not done.
Well, but I feel like if they went car by car and disallowed some and allowed others, I think you end up in an even bigger mess than you already are.
Yeah. So, I guess it goes to Orton Sawyer. Me, myself, I like Mike Helton at the helm when he was around.
All right. What about you, Tyler?
Oh, my green flag was honestly
Tyler, you sound like a robot.
Yeah, we can't hardly hear you, bud.
Hold on, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I think my green flag was Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
All right. What about your black flag?
My personal black flag is the package for the super speedway. Not package for
you don't like the package?
Yeah, because once they were 4 wide, their fuel saving, they weren't really going.
I'd rather them be pacing around at 4 wide rather than the single file train that we've seen at other races.
It wasn't honestly, it wasn't as competitive. I think there was only like 20 lead changes. Usually at Talladega, it's like 30 to 40 lead changes.
Well, yeah, but that's also usually because the pack ends up spread apart and restarted 4 or 5 times. We only had, 3 restarts in this race? The restart at the end of stage 1, the restart at the end of stage 2, and then the restart after the big one for overtime. We only had 3 restarts.
Technically 4 because you had the Suarez crash too.
Oh yeah, you had the Suarez crash, so you had 4 restarts in the race. But still, that's well below the average for a super speedway race. So if you're going to go off of average lead changes, I think you have to look at that in comparison to number of restarts. Because again, look at any other Daytona or Talladega race, usually having 8 to 10 crashes leading to overtime and restarts and multiple restarts throughout the race.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you, Billy? Do you have any?
I have a green flag and a black flag.
Well, please share.
Green flag, Sammy Smith winning Talladega for the Xfinity Series. And black flag, and here's the interesting fact, from 32 to 40th, like 7 of the 9 spots left are basically Ford. Like, I thought Ford had performed very, very bad in Talladega this week.
Alright. Well, I have 2 green flags, and surprisingly, neither of them are for the Cup Series. First one is Sammy Smith winning at Talladega, going from the bottom of the playoffs to the top. And my second one is for Mr. David Starr for getting his first top 10 in 7 years in the Xfinity Series. He finished 8th on Saturday. And my black flag, I hate to do it because he's my driver, but I got to give my black flag to Alex Bowman for wrecking Blaney at the end of stage 2 and taking my pick out of the race.
Oof.
Maybe that was Bowman telling you not to pick against him again.
But, all right, well, they are racing at the Roval this coming weekend. And there have been some changes in the configuration to the Roval. Instead of the long straightaway between turns 6 and it's either 6, 7, and 8 or 7 and 8. It is now one really wide hairpin turn, which a lot of people are saying it could create some more passing
really narrow
opportunities.
hairpin?
What's that?
It's a really narrow hairpin, I think, if I'm remembering the layout correctly.
Well,
Let me look at what
they said it was kind of narrow, but then it gets wider, which you can like use your bumper a little bit more. There, people are saying it could create more or less dive bomb opportunities, especially late in the races.
It's going to create a lot of dive bomb opportunities.
So,
yeah.
So Ryan sent me a couple pictures, and it looks like, NASCAR made it to where it's more uphill, and stuff. Oops.
Hill.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that track's nice and flat.
Well, with that, we are going to make our race picks for this weekend. As you can see, I've got our names on the wheel, and I did throw Billy in there as well. I will allow him to make a fantasy pick. It will not count towards points or the standings. So the first pick for Roval will be.
What's it be, Billy?
Oh, it's JP.
Yes!
How?
Okay.
Yeah, there's it on the track map.
So, I'm going out on a limb. I hate this driver, but I'm going to love him for one weekend.
All right. Good old Dennis the Menace.
Kyle Larson.
Wait, what?
JP has openly said that he strongly dislikes Kyle Larson. He is not a Kyle Larson fan. So he said he is going to love him for 1 week.
Podcast.
Yeah, but then he said Kyle Larson.
Yeah, he never said Dennis the
Kyle
Menace.
Larson is the driver that he hates.
Yeah, Kyle Larson is basically the new Dennis the Menace to JP.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Kyle Larson. All
He
right.
didn't stop hating Denny Hamlin to the point where we nicknamed him Dennis the Menace.
Next pick is going to be Billy.
Well, I would call Denny Hamlin Dennis No Cups. I have 2 for this one.
Oh, you can pick anybody you want. It's not going to count towards our points. So.
I say AJ Allmendinger double dips.
All right.
Which, anyone know why he's in the 16 and not the 13 this weekend, considering he and SVG are sharing the ride, and typically it's Allmendinger who gets bumped out to the 13 and not the 16?
I don't know.
Because, yeah,
no
SVG's
idea.
in the 13 and Allmendinger gets the in-house 16 this time.
By the way, Allmendinger is still on the table since Billy is a fantasy pick, quote unquote. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just basically a ghost here right now. I'm like Casper, the friendly ghost.
all right, next
All
pick,
right.
Ryan.
All right. So the only person for me is Kyle Larson.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the road course. And I remember this track being compared when it was first introduced. I remember people comparing it to a two-way street course, and who's one of the most naturally gifted street course drivers in the field? I'll take SVG.
Damn it, you took my pick.
And I didn't want to curse AJ Allmendinger, so we'll go ahead. I'm okay to curse SVG, and hey, if it works out, it works out, and if it curses him, oh well. At least I didn't curse AJ.
All right, next pick will be Jamie.
Well, I don't know when's the next time I'm going to be able to pick this guy, but actually, I'll keep that back in mind because it might give away what my trivia is. I guess I'll go with William Byron. He seems to be doing pretty well with road courses as of late, as well as he had a pretty good finish last year.
He happens to be doing pretty good well at road courses as of late. Am I the only one that remembers how his last road course finished?
Up in the air, almost leaving Watkins Glen.
Yeah, with a tire in Brian Keselowski's window.
We're not going to talk about that.
I just happened to find it funny because I picked him at the last road course race and he didn't work out because of the dire curse. But luckily
Next
you're
pick
not.
is myself. I think he's going to make a comeback. I'm picking Chase Elliott.
Awesome Chase from the same place.
And the last pick will go to none other than Tyler.
You took my thing. Right.
Okay, I heard him say Alex Bowman.
Okay.
Anything else he said, but I heard him say Alex Bowman.
All right, and as per usual, I will get the rest of the picks through chat and text message. Before we close the show out, it is now time for another rousing edition of Jamie's Trivia. Jamie, what do you have for us tonight?
Jamie?
Oops, sorry, mute monster. As of 2021, what NASCAR Cup driver has the best average finish at the Roval?
Oh, I know this one, I think.
All right, so we will start the answers with Ryan.
Is it Kyle Busch?
You are correct.
All right.
Ding, 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 ding.
Damn it, I was going to say
I know my guy. There we go.
I was going to say Alex Bowman.
Since you got Ralph the Rip, we're now gonna shift it to what is the average finish?
Sounds like 8.4.
All right, so JP locks in 8.4. Tyler, what is your guess?
I need to know what I cut out.
What is Kyle Busch's average finish at the Roval?
From 2021 to now, not his entire history at the Roval.
9.1.
All right, Billy.
9.1, I heard him say.
Yeah.
7.4.
All right, Ryan.
I'm going to say 6.8. I think it's a little bit higher than that. I know he's had a couple of top fives, I think, the last two races there.
All right. I'm going to say 4.4.
I think that's too high.
So, based off of the site, based off of driveraverages.com, Kyle Busch's average finish at the Roval since February 2021 is 3.3.
Oh, wow.
I was
Way
right.
better
I
than
was
I thought.
closest.
Yep. So winner of this week goes to Greg. Well, Ryan for guessing it and Greg for the lap average.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our show tonight. As always, a big thank you to all of our sponsors, Fubo TV, Fanatics, Century PC, Sleeves, Duke Cannon, W Energy. Am I missing anybody? Bulletproof Coffee. Please
Yeah.
check out their sponsor links in our podcast description. You can get some good items from all of those, and we have some discount codes. SSPP10 on some of them, I believe. But until next time, I am Greg, and for Jamie, Ryan, AP, Tyler, and Billy, thank you for coming on the show tonight. This has been the Lap Down, and we will see you guys after the Roval. Deuces.
Deuces.
This is